Well, there's never a dull moment in US politics when it comes to the presidential election, and Donald Trump has this morning returned to the campaign trail, delivering a speech from the White House balcony. It's his first official engagement since his COVID diagnosis. He says he's feeling great and was adamant the US will overcome the virus, will beat the virus, going so far as to say it will disappear.
Through the power of the American spirit, I think, more than anything else. Science, medicine will eradicate the China virus once and for all. We'll get rid of it all over the world. You see big flare-ups in Europe, big flare-ups in Canada, very big flare-up in Canada. You saw that today. A lot of flare-ups, but it's going to disappear. It is disappearing, and vaccines are going to help.
This kicks off a big week of campaigning for the president with a planned rally in Florida on Tuesday, where he's expected to attack Biden on law and order issues.
If the left gains power, they'll launch a nationwide crusade against law enforcement, and they've already done that. And you see them. They're doing that at a level that nobody's ever seen before. Taking their funds away, their firearms, their fundamental authorities, taking everything away, including your freedom.
In his first interview on Fox News a few days ago, Trump spoke about how tired he felt when he was in hospital with the virus, and he said he didn't have his usual energy. But Trump's White House press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, released a statement today from his physician saying that the president is no longer considered a transmission risk to others. But quite extraordinarily, they say he's going to be out and about, even though he refuses at this point to take a COVID test that clears him. The polls show the gap is widening between the two candidates, with Biden up by about 10 points, and that's higher than the lead Hillary Clinton had before the 2016 election. Biden is putting pressure on the president to take a test showing he's negative before he gets out and about, but yet it's still something that the White House has not produced. Joining me now.
Before I came out again today to go somewhere, I had another test this morning, and I'm clear. I think it's important the president make sure two things. One, that he is clear, he is not a spreader. That's the only responsible thing to do. And I don't know what's going on at the moment now, but I hope he does that.
And joining me now to discuss this is senior writer at The Australian, Troy Bramston. Troy, thank you for your time. It's quite extraordinary to be sitting here in Australia and watch Donald Trump make his first public appearance since his COVID-19 diagnosis. I mean, as you know here, there's strict quarantine for 2 weeks for anyone coming from overseas, particularly anyone who's infected. So there is this level of incredulity at watching an infected Trump return to the White House, give a speech, return to the campaign rally. Is this too early? Should he still be in quarantine?
Yes, good afternoon, Sharri. Look, I think this is an extraordinary situation here. Donald Trump clearly is on the ropes in terms of the polls leading into this historic election. He wants to be out there campaigning. He's very frustrated. He likes to draw energy from big crowds. So we've seen that White House rally earlier today, which you've got on screen now. There he is, speaking from the balcony. So he's desperate to be campaigning. He's well behind. He needs to do everything he can to try to shake up this race. But you're exactly right, Sharri, because all of the health protocols, the public health experts would not be recommending this kind of activity. At all. I don't think we can have a lot of confidence in the White House physician and what he says, the White House doctors, because they, were very slippery with the truth last week on some pretty basic questions about whether or not the president had been on oxygen or not. But this is a president who is looking down the barrel of defeat. So he's going to break with those norms and break with those protocols to do anything that he can. And you wouldn't see this in really any other advanced democratic country. You don't see it in Australia. You wouldn't see it in New Zealand. You don't see it in the United Kingdom or Germany or France or almost any other comparable political system where political leaders are taking much more precautions. And, of course, the result we've seen is that the White House now is a COVID cluster. And that presidential event that Donald Trump held a few weeks ago when he nominated Amy Coney Barrett for the Supreme Court, that has become a super spreader event. So we can see what the consequences are with this kind of behaviour.
Absolutely. You mentioned that event, and everyone thought Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing was going to be the event that reshaped the presidential campaign. And then yet Trump has here been hit with coronavirus. How has this impacted? How will this continue to impact on the course of the campaign, do you think? The fact that the president has got through the virus seemingly in a show of strength, do you think that will work in his favour?
Look, we don't know the true state of the president's health, but you can just look at him, and he looks pretty okay. I mean, he looks like he has largely dealt with the coronavirus and moved on, although he could well still be infected. So you're right about that. But this is the worst thing that can happen to Donald Trump's presidential campaign: there being a focus on COVID-19. All the polls show that the president getting COVID-19 is a reflection on him not taking the virus seriously enough. I think we can say quite clearly, based on just the raw numbers, Sharri, that the United States, which believes in American excellence, believes they're the best country in the world, the most advanced economy, the most advanced society, better than anybody else, they have had the most disastrous impact of COVID-19. More cases, more deaths than any other comparable nation around the world. So it's been a disaster, and the voters have long made up their mind, the majority of them, about Donald Trump's handling of the virus. So with just a few weeks to go, Sharri, the last thing the president wants to be doing is talking about COVID-19, and the fact that he's got it, I think, has become emblematic of his handling of it. And so Donald Trump is now struggling to move the campaign onto other issues because this is a losing issue for him.
There was quite an extraordinary claim in the New York Times that was published just this afternoon that Trump had discussed actually wearing a Superman outfit or T-shirt under his suit when he came out of the hospital. I mean, look, you don't know how true that is. Obviously, it hasn't been verified by other media sources, but that's what the New York Times has published. From Australia's perspective, though, Troy, Greg Sheridan, the foreign editor at the paper we are both at, The Australian, argues that it's actually potentially more advantageous for Trump to be president than for Joe Biden. And he points to a whole host of examples where Trump has gone above and beyond for Australia. And he hasn't done many of these things for other nations, whether it's aluminium and steel tariffs, just as one example, or the refugee intake is another. Do you agree with this assessment?
Well, I do think that Scott Morrison's handling of Donald Trump has been as good as it could be. He certainly has established a good personal relationship, was given an official state visit to the White House, I think, last year. And also Malcolm Turnbull, to his credit, he had also handled Donald Trump quite shrewdly and quite effectively on a range of policy issues, including the tariff question, including some of those refugee issues that were a big issue at the start of Donald Trump's presidency. But I think it is quite mistaken to think that the Australian government is in any way alarmed about a Joe Biden presidency. I mean, Joe Biden has been on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee for more than 3 decades. He's a former vice president. He would be a very conventional, very normal, very predictable president for Australia to deal with, a key alliance partner. He understands the relationship. So there is no alarm inside the Australian government about a Biden presidency. And on many issues, Biden's worldview coincides with the Morrison government worldview on things like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, on free trade and trading relationships generally, on membership of the World Health Organization, on being part of the Paris Climate Change Agreement, support for the Iran nuclear deal. The list goes on and on and on. There are many, many issues where the Australian government sees more eye to eye with Joe Biden and the Democrats than they do with Donald Trump and the current Republican Party. But the bottom line is that Scott Morrison can deal with Donald Trump, but he would also be able to very easily deal with Joe Biden. And there's no alarm inside the Australian government about a Democrat being in the White House.
Yeah.